Hey everybody, Max Bultman and Corey Pronman from the Athletic Hockey Show here talking to you today about Dalibor Dvorsky, one of the more interesting prospects in the 2023 NHL draft, Corey, and a guy who had an up and down season for a lot of the year, but comes in now for you as a top 10 player.
Yeah, this is a guy who was very highly touted coming into the season. Played a really prominent role with several Slovak international teams in the prior season. One of the leading scorers of Hlinka Gretzky as a 16-year-old. Makes that really interesting Slovakia World Junior team before the tournament gets canceled. As a 16-year-old, he would have been one of their main guys on their power play. On that team, helps lead their U18 team to promotion at the D1 level of U18 Worlds. And then he comes into the start of the season, maybe didn't start his season on a high note. Then he starts the year with AIK at the Allsvenskan level. He's just okay, not really producing. Ice time, isn't extremely consistent. But then he goes down to the J20 level, gets, some more offense. World Juniors, was a year later in terms of the age group where Slovakia has some success at that tournament. He was pretty good, not amazing. Then again, split time between junior and the pros, much more success at the junior level, scores nearly 2 points per game at the junior level in Sweden when it's all said and done. So start to see his stock kind of rise a little bit as the season goes on. And then it was really that U18 World Championships where he's playing against his age group, something we haven't seen at the top level of the IIHF since basically the Holinka nearly a year and a half ago. And he puts on a great performance. He leads Slovakia to several upset wins, including upsetting Finland in the quarterfinal. And I said it was a very impressive display by him at that tournament. He was my vote for MVP of the tournament. And I think that gave him a very good chance to go in the top 10 of this year's NHL draft.
What kind of statement does a performance like that make to teams? Because when you are the focal point, it also means you're the focal point for other teams stopping you. And it seemed like he found a way.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't a loaded Slovakia team. I mean, there were some good players on there, like Maxim Sturbak's a good player, Juraj Pekarčik's a good player. But this wasn't a top to bottom, team full of legit pro talent. He was clearly the guy. He had, by far the most puck touches on that team. And like I said, he helped them win some really hard games. Even the games they didn't win, they were still being very competitive against Sweden, very competitive against Canada. So I think, this was overall a very impressive effort by Dvorsky, showing how he can elevate himself in hard games, in high leverage games. And, it's not just the skill that stood out, but it was his competitiveness and, how consistent he was throughout the tournament. I think that sold him to teams who maybe weren't 100% sold coming in, even though just because there were some issues, I think, particularly with his skating that I think worried teams.
We talk about the U18s. We look at what the offensive production was there, but I know your comp for this player is William Karlsson, who's more in that kind of two-way mold for Vegas. When you look at him, what are you seeing with this player? What is his style going to be in the NHL?
I think he has a very good skill and goal scoring ability, but I would not call this guy like a dynamic offensive player. I don't think he's like a game breaker with his puck play, his playmaking. It's very good, but I think it's the very good offense combined with a very strong motor. So I think you think of Karlsson, you think of guys like Anton Lundell, who maybe aren't these elite offensive players, but they have offense. They compete hard, but like Dvorsky are maybe not the most amazing skaters in the world. And I think Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who maybe got dragged a little bit during his time in Montreal, but I thought looked quite good at Carolina this year, especially in the playoffs. He's another guy who I think could fit that mold too.